epic, bougie, cheap, and healthy holiday recipes are coming at you. You know, sometimes it's just fun to show off your dope-tastic cooking skills, which I know you have. And you know, the holidays are approaching, and you know what that means? You're gonna be going to people's houses for dinner, you're gonna get invited places, you're gonna go to little gatherings, and you're gonna have people come over as well. And you may want to, you know, show off your amazing cooking skills, take things to another level, and make some fancy looking food that is totally gonna impress your friends. And there ain't no shame in that. First up, we're going to be making golden quinoa stuffed acorn squashes with tahini, rosemary, and tofu pesto. That may sound like a lot, but it's really, really not. Everything's pretty much on the table in under an hour, 45 minutes-ish, and then all you gotta do is plate it up real nice, add a few little simple garnishes that look super fancy, and you have a super impressive looking main dish. And then after that, we're going to be making slow cooked winter veggies with cinnamon spiced tempeh. I'm telling you guys, it really is like the definition of a hug. A big, warm, saucy, stewy hug in a bowl. What I love the most about this recipe is that it is super adaptable to whatever winter veggies you have in your fridge or that you just enjoy eating in the cold weather months. I'm talking carrots, turnips, parsnips, rutabagas, squashes, pumpkins, sweet potatoes, and potatoes, like all of those good things. All you need is a few pounds of them, like 3 pounds. You throw them in a crock pot with some fresh herbs and top with some delicious, easy tempeh, and you have a super impressive, hearty bowl of goodness that is great as a main or, again, awesome as a side. So without further ado, let's just get cooking and make some epic food. We are starting out with these totally beautiful looking rosemary pesto stuffed squashes. The first step is to prepare your squashes. I'm using little acorn squashes as they're easy to cut in half and fit nicely on a baking sheet, but you can do this with any other squash like kabocha, delicata, or even butternut squash. If your squash has a stem like mine, they're fairly easy to pop off by pressing against it with your thumb and a little bit of force. Removing them will make the squash lie flat on the baking sheet. Then using a large sharp knife, carefully cut them in half horizontally, scoop out the seeds, and roast them up for a little healthy snack. Place the squash halves on a large baking sheet, cut sides up, and lightly brush them with olive oil or avocado oil, and season them with a little bit of salt and pepper. You could also add garlic powder or any other seasoning blends that you like. Then you're going to pop those in the oven and bake for 35 to 40 minutes at 400 degrees Fahrenheit until the flesh is softened and begin to turn slightly golden around the edges. In the meantime, let's make this elevated golden quinoa. Grab yourself a medium stock pot or saute pan and pour in some veggie broth. Add about 1 tablespoon of minced or grated fresh ginger or ground ginger powder if that's what you have, ground turmeric, and a little salt. We're also adding a kiss of maple syrup to round out all the strong flavors, and then just whisk all of those ingredients together until the spices are dissolved and you have a lovely golden broth. Pour in your quinoa and whisk once again to combine, then turn the heat up to high, cover and bring to a boil, then lower to a simmer and cook for 25 minutes or so until all the liquid is absorbed and the quinoa is fluffy. While the quinoa is simmering and the squashes are roasting, you can whip up this incredible pesto. So pull out that food processor and add a 1/4 cup of minced fresh rosemary leaves, 2 cups of roasted pumpkin seeds, raw or salted are fine as well if that's what you have, 4 cloves of garlic because it's gotta be flavorful, a teeny bit of red chili flakes for a touch of warmth, and some salt to bring out all of those delicious flavors. Also, don't forget to add some lemon juice or apple cider vinegar to make everything pop and taste super bright and fresh. Now, here's where things get interesting. We're adding about 1/4 of a block of firm tofu. No need to press it as the moisture in it will help the pesto blend up really nice. This is going to help bulk up the texture, make it thicker than your average pesto, and also make the meal more satisfying. Lastly, we're adding some drippy tahini into the mix, and this is going to make this extra creamy and add a deep yet subtle nuttiness and savoriness to the pesto. Now just process it until it becomes almost fully combined into a smooth, spreadable texture, and finish it off by adding in some fresh cilantro leaves with the stems for a blast of herby freshness. Just look at that color. It is the most beautiful sage green, which is ironic as there's no sage in it, but hey, you could totally use sage instead of rosemary, and I bet that would be epic too. Alright, things are coming together. The quinoa is now cooked through, so let's just fluff it up a little bit with a fork and let it cool a little bit. But while it's still hot and steamy, why not add in some chopped spinach for a pop of color and some extra greens to make this dish even more balanced and nutritious. Now that the the squashes are roasted and fork tender, it's time to plate them up and make them look pretty. Now grab your fanciest looking plate or bowl, or a plate that looks like a bowl. Add one squash half into the plate and carefully spoon out the quinoa into the squash bowl, because that's kind of what it is, an edible bowl. Edible? Has that term been coined? Anyway, just stuff it with as much quinoa as you like, and then get yourself a nice sexy looking dollop of that luscious, creamy, dreamy rosemary pesto and plop it on top of that quinoa. Heck, you could even slather it on if it feels right. Lastly, it's time to garnish that thing of beauty with some sweet and tart dried cranberries, plus a little sprinkle of some extra pumpkin seeds for some much needed crunch. If you can get it, I highly recommend adding some vegan goat cheese crumbles for that little bit of extra contrast and flavor. On their own, these stuffed squashes are incredibly filling and can easily serve as a main course, but if your squashes are small, they could be a lovely little side dish at your next gathering too. So good! Sorry, that was a little bit aggressive, but I can't hold it in. It's a lot going on right now in my mouth, and it's just really good. Basically what I'm trying to say is, you need to make this. Next up, we're making slow-cooked cinnamon tempeh and winter veg au jus. In addition to an assortment of root veggies, squash, and fresh herbs, I'm also using a couple apples to add juicy and sweet depth of flavor to this dish. First up, I'm chopping a few small sweet potatoes with the skins on, as they're nutritious, and it's just my preference, but you can peel them if you like. I'm keeping fairly large chunks for all the veggies, so cooking time stays relatively consistent. I've also got some parsnips, and if you've never tried them before, they're delicious. They taste sort of like a combination of a radish and a carrot. Slightly sweet, but it also has a nice bite like a radish does. They're really good mixed into mashed potatoes or soups, stews, roasted, etc. Next, I'm working with a celery root, aka celeriac, and this is actually the first time I've ever bought one, cooked one, tasted one, and I was delightfully surprised at how much I like it. It tastes like a very potent celery, very fragrant, and it has a similar texture to any other root veggies out there, so I'd highly recommend trying it out in this dish. Just make sure you peel it first, as the skin is quite dirty. Next, I'm using half of a small pumpkin that was in desperate need of using up. I'm also adding a couple ambrosia apples, as I just love their tartness and sweetness, but you could use any other apple like Granny Smith or Honeycrisp. Now that the veggies are prepped, we're going to slice up some fresh wintry rosemary and several cloves of fresh garlic. These will act as our aromatics that will infuse the veggies with their fragrance and flavor as they cook, and it's going to be incredible. Now simply just dump all of those chopped veggies and apples into a large crock pot along with the rosemary and garlic. We're keeping the seasonings pretty simple here with just some freshly cracked black pepper and salt. Easy peasy. And a touch of oil, which is optional but does add a little bit of richness to the jus. Now just stir everything together really good, making sure the rosemary, garlic, and oil are all coating the veggies evenly. And now just create a slight well in the center by pushing the veggies out and up to the sides, as this is where the tempeh is going to be. Speaking of which, let's move on to the cinnamon tempeh. In a flat bottom bowl, we're going to make the sweet cinnamon coating for the tempeh. So we're going to combine some coconut sugar or brown sugar, whichever is your go-to, plus a healthy dose of ground cinnamon, about a tablespoon, and some salt. That's it, 3 ingredients. Then using a fork or a whisk, just give all that a good mix to combine. Now if your tempeh doesn't already come sliced, thinly slice them into about 1/8 of an inch thick, and then just drop them into the cinnamon sugar. Using your hands, just lightly toss them around to coat them on both sides, and then remove them from the bowl, set them aside on a plate, and repeat with all the remaining tempeh slices. Heat up a tablespoon or so of neutral tasting oil in a large skillet or saute pan on medium-high heat, and brown the tempeh slices for about 2 or 3 minutes on each side. Remove them from the pan and repeat with all the remaining tempeh. This is going to make your kitchen smell so good, by the way. Back to the crock pot, you're going to pour 1 cup of veggie broth over the vegetables, which will be the starting point for the jus, and it will also ensure that the veggies don't burn or stick to the bottom of the crock. Now we're just going to take all that browned cinnamon tempeh and nestle it right in the center of all those veggies in the little well we created earlier. You may be wondering, why bother cooking the tempeh along with the veggies when they seem good to enjoy right after browning them? It's true, you could do that, but by cooking the tempeh along with the veggies, it infuses them and the jus with a wonderful warm cinnamon essence and just makes the flavors of the tempeh a lot more rich and complex. After 6 hours or so of slow cooking, this is your final product. The veggies and apples have softened a lot, what, but aren't falling apart mushy. And the jus that they've been simmering in is just an absolute flavor explosion. It's like the best veggie broth you'll ever taste. The veggies are so tender, melt in your mouth, kind of delicious, and they've got the loveliest infusion of herbaceous rosemary, sweet apples, and warm cinnamon. And that tempeh, so tender, so flavorful, so good. It's the ultimate bowl of comfort, yet it feels luxurious and elevated. It's something you can feel good about serving to guests during the holidays, yet its simplicity makes it perfect for a weeknight dinner anytime. My bowl of veggies and tempeh is too hot to hold, so just gonna use this. Oh, oh my, Okay, the tempeh is like, you would not think that just coating tempeh in some coconut sugar and cinnamon would be that fancy, but when it is cooked in those veggies all day long, it infuses all the other veggies with the cinnamon aroma, but also the other veggies infuse the tempeh with their root veggie essence, and it's so flavorful. Oh my gosh, cinnamon spice tempeh is like gonna be my new holiday way to make tempeh. Yes! If you made it to the end of this video, you have truly blessed my little vegan heart. If you enjoyed it, let me know in a comment below. Give it a like, maybe subscribe below so you don't miss any other videos like these ones right here. And I hope to see you in another video very soon. Bye!